So don't just be a private chef, don't just be a caterer. Doing one or two things that brings you passion, because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to be the best at it. As simple as that.
This episode is brought to you by FultonFishMarket.com, the most trusted name in seafood. FultonFishMarket.com is the e-commerce provider for New York's iconic Fulton Fish Market, the largest seafood market in the Western Hemisphere, trusted by top chefs for over 200 years. Fulton Fish Market provides a range of world-class seafood options. FultonFishMarket.com can help you serve a wide range of customers, whether you serve high-profile individuals or just strive for culinary excellence. They deliver directly to your doorstep in all 48 contiguous states, providing a comprehensive selection of the finest seafood, from wild fish to caviar and shellfish. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is our go-to destination and the name we trust. Let's celebrate those who support us and dive into this episode of the Private Chef podcast with a taste of excellence and freshness. Visit www.fultonfishmarket.com to get 15% off your first order. Use code PrivateChef at checkout. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. I'm your host, Hennche. Today, we're talking to Chef Richard Vanderplas. He's not only a private chef, but also global restaurant consultant and the owner of Edenopolis, a company specializing in catering and event styling. Chef Richard's culinary journey has taken him around the world for nearly 2 decades, and that's what we want to explore together. And just looking at the way you set up a table is insane. Like I've seen very few chefs or companies, setting up such colorful and wide-ranging tables. Where does that level of creativity and food passion come from?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's kind of a funny, a bit ironic story. So I've always been in the restaurant industry since I was 17, and I'm 37 now. I did it because just to survive, frankly, I needed to make money. And I started taking it seriously on my own as a business. And long story short, I used to do full service catering, like weddings and things like that in the I do again now, but in the beginning I was way ahead of my ability. I was overly confident and doing these huge events. And so to take pressure off of the hors d'oeuvres and the main courses and things, I started doing these little cheese boards. I thought, it's really easy. I can just put some cheeses out, put some whatever. And I didn't really care very much. I was just like, let me just put some stuff out, and that'll make it easier for me. So ironically, over the years, it sort of took over. And it just became its own thing. And I've always loved to design. I have always loved color and shape and form. And I think I'm a little bit on the autism spectrum, and I think that I see the world a little bit differently. I look at things through colors and textures and things, and I have a very high attention to detail.
Yeah. It really speaks for itself just looking at it. But how do you execute on that, given that it's all driven by I'd almost call it a gift, it's like individual to you. How do you do that consistency? How do you build a team around that?
Sure. So I'm very logistical minded. I spend most of my time actually not thinking about how to make tables, but I trust that myself and my team, we know how to be artistic. I really focus most of my time on the machine that builds the machine, sort of like the behind the scenes, the logistics, the kitchen that I've built. How do we transport the food? Where are our distributors, like, are they going to be always on time? Are the costs going to be consistent? What are the price points? How many hours do we need to set it up? All these like logistical things are always on the forefront of my mind.
Hmm. That's so interesting, because I would have thought that you spend a lot more time on the artistic part and preparing that,
The
than
artistic part naturally flows from me. I don't need to spend even a moment thinking about it because it's always there. The thing that comes less naturally to me are keeping things organized as a business, making it profitable, making it a good value for the customers, making sure the quality is there, that my chefs are paid well, that the customers are happy. It's really about the value that we're providing for the cost. It's not really about the cost. At the end of the day, whatever the customer is paying, that they feel like they got more of a value than what they paid for. And that is the thing that for me is very difficult. So I have to spend the most effort focusing on that. And then all the artistic things, it's really effortless for me.
yeah. I find that quite interesting. I would say I'm almost the exact opposite. The the business aspect to me, and kind of like making sense of the numbers and those things, they're a lot more second nature to me. And I actually have to spend a lot of time focusing on the creative aspect of things. And it doesn't, like, you use the word, it flows. Do you feel like when you're doing it that you're in a state of flow?
Absolutely, I do. But I also want to bring up the fact that I think one of the reasons why it flows, and one of the reasons that these AI algorithms like ChatGPT and these computers can create artwork, right, is because art and balance and these kind of things are actually quite mathematical, and there is a lot of sequence and method to it that for someone that's not disciplined in the artistic realm, it might seem like magic, or it might seem like this like very complicated thing. But if you want, we can talk a little bit about the table as a layout and how I break that down.
Yeah, I would love that. Actually, let me.
So the first thing is when the customer comes to me, let's say they want one of these tables, I'll either do a walkthrough or they'll send me a video of the space, and I'll be able to see the exact table, or we can rent them as well. But the first thing starts with the two-dimensional space. How much space do we have? How big is it? Is it 8 by 4? Is it a countertop? Is it a bar top? Is it a round table, oval table, square table? So it starts with that. Once we have the dimensions, then I start to think about the centerpiece, or sort of how I'm going to balance the larger objects. So let's say the customer wants a very large floral installation in the center. So I'll design that on its own with no food. So we take it one step at a time. Maybe the flowers cut the table in diagonal. Maybe they go up the leg. Maybe it's a few vases or installations. So then I start to think about, when you zoom out and you step away from the table, what is the overall shape of the whole thing? So I think that's one thing that people don't pay enough attention to, is they'll get really close and they'll say, oh, this cheese, this charcuterie, this thing looks beautiful. But what about from way out here? How does the whole thing look? So I first start with the greater shape. Is the whole thing going to be a triangle? Is it going to be multiple peaks, right? Am I going to play with asymmetry? Like maybe we're not going to be symmetrical. Maybe half of the table will be high and half will be low. So I would say the first step to creating an installation like this is to get a paper and a pencil or a whiteboard and just draw the overall shape first. Once you have the overall shape, you have the dimensions, then you can start to break it into quadrants. So in other words, we have this overall shape. Let's say I have a square table, 8 foot by 8 foot. I have one in 2 weeks I'm doing in Austin, Texas, that I'm designing right now. So it's an 8 foot by 8 foot table. I've decided that I'm going to cut the table diagonally with flowers, and it's going to be highest in the center point and kind of taper down to the sides of the table and go off the side of the table and hang. I don't know why. I just thought, like, I've done this before. I think it'd be very nice. I have no idea what colors of the flowers I'm doing yet. I have no idea. All I know is it's going to go diagonal. So I then contacted a rental company in Texas, and I rented 4 3-tier cupcake display supports. I have 4 golden goblets, kind of like a king's goblet, but much larger, which I'm going to have grapes on. And I have 4 large silver platters. So why do I say 4, 4, 4? Well, the reason is because it's a square table, and we're cutting the table diagonally. And so because there's asymmetry of the diagonal, we're going to balance the asymmetry with the symmetry of the number 4, because the table has 4 corners. So we're going to have the 4 platters, the 4 risers, and the platters are going to be low on the edges of the table and build upwards to the highest platters towards the center of the floral installation. So that when you look back at the table, it has a consistent shape going to a center point in the middle. So I also know that on one corner of the table, I'm going to have a large cutting board with a whole leg of ham, and I'm going to be carving it there. So we have a meat corner, and this meat corner is going to have all kinds of meats, right? I'm going to have another section of the table, maybe another, you could say, fourth of the table, be cheeses. I'm going to have another section of the table with big bowls of dips, like olives and pesto and hummus and stuff like that. And I'm going to have the fourth section of the table be desserts. Now, each of those sections have some large items. So we always start with the large things first. So I say, okay, big ham leg, big quarter wheel of Parmesan, big macaroon tower, right? For example, right? Once I design the larger items, and keep in mind, we already have the flowers, we already have the dimensions, the amount of space remaining between the large items becomes fewer and fewer. So it becomes easier and easier over time to fill the whole space. Once I know basically how much extra space I have, I'll use things like nuts or dried apricots or sliced radishes or tomatoes, carrots, other things to fill in the gaps between the platters. And that becomes very easy because all you have to do is follow the lines. All these platters are ovals or squares or straight lines. So you just follow them, and almost like you're doodling, you just kind of fill in the gaps. But if you don't start with the overall shape first and the larger items first, it becomes impossible for you to balance all the things together. It becomes very messy.
But do you visualize the color too? So you start with the overall shape, which, okay, I get that. And you work your way down basically from the larger shapes down to the smaller, and then you just fill the gaps. And how do you do that on a color spectrum? Like there's certain items, certain foods that have certain colors. How do you start? I mean, you must have a visual before you go there, because you need to order the flowers and the kind of foods that you want to bring, the kind of items that you actually want to incorporate there.
Yes. So first of all, any of the tables that you see that we do, even if they're for 500 people or 1,000 people, they are all assembled in 3 hours. In 3 hours only. Maybe 3.5. But food is perishable, and it has to be cold. When we arrive with the food, it's cold, but everything always has to be assembled in the same amount of time. So we'll have as many staff as needed to get it done in that same time frame, whether it's for 20 people or 500 people. That being said, to answer your question about the colors and things, everything in catering has to be done the day before, 100%. So in our kitchen, the day before we're receiving the food, we work all day to make sure everything is completely prepared and ready to go. So that when we get there, everything, we already have the plan. All the hard work is done a week ahead or the day before. So that when we actually get to the event, if we didn't make any mistakes, everything runs smoothly. There's no stress. If there's any stress in catering, you've made a huge mistake. So the reason I say all this is because things like the colors and the choices of the food are determined between conversations with the client and myself, because it's all about what they want. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. Oh, I'm the big artist, whatever. It's more about, how can I make them happy? At the end of the day. And I really mean that, like, what food do you want? Oh, you want to do Middle Eastern food? You want to do Italian theme? For example, we do a lot of weddings. So what can be cool is, the husband side of the family is from Italy and the wife is from Morocco. So we'll split the table in half, and half the food is from Italy and half is from Morocco. So in this case, color doesn't come into really the spectrum. What I'll do is I'll always have a conversation about the flowers. So say, what color flower spectrum do you want? And sometimes this is needs to match the florals in the event space. So maybe they really love green and white and sort of this very classic muted tone. So we'll do that. And then sometimes people want a suggestion from me. If I suggest color spectrums for flowers, there are certain limited balances between colors that exist. There are not an infinite amount, like green and pink, or white and green, or purple, orange, red, yellow. There are these certain palettes that are very well studied and well known. And once you're familiar with them, you sort of stay within them. There's certain spectrums that clash, and this is just color theory. So once you know this, you can apply the same color theory to the food itself. I will say that if you have a platter of food and it's within a circle or a square, it's contained within a platter. It's not a free-form thing, right? We're not putting tomatoes and carrots and whatever on the table. Let's say you have a platter. Whatever is in that platter has to be balanced in terms of color, in terms of shape. Not everything on the table has to be balanced. You don't have to balance the color of every single tomato and every single thing to the flowers and match it. This is too complicated. And this is not to say that I haven't made entire tables yellow and entire tables green and gone down that road. Some clients, they want that. They say, we want everything on the table to be red and orange. Like, fine. Like, that's fun. But not everybody is interested in that. In fact, most clients are interested in tasty food. I want my guests to be happy. I want to make sure that my uncle has meat. I want to make sure that my vegan guest has vegan food. This is the fear of people, that when you're dealing with the client, you're really not dealing with the client. You're dealing with the client's family. You're dealing with, they want to make sure that everyone is happy. So number one is the food comes first and design comes second.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is so essential. It's that when we're catering or when we're serving the principal, who we really have to take care of is the guests. And when the guests are happy, usually the principal is happy. Not all the time. Absolutely. Sometimes the guests are happy and the principal still gets hung up. But in general, if you take care of the people, the principal will be happy.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for example, the color combinations that you spoke, is that something that you studied out of your personal interest? Is it something that came more from an art? Or is it something that you intentionally were like, okay, if I understand this, I can use it on the tables?
So for me, I experience and see the world, I think, a little differently from most people. The way that I experience things is a very personal, emotional connection. I have personal relationships with spices. I have personal relationships with ingredients. I have personal relationships with colors and color patterns. My experience with creating these tables has been a long process over many years of seeing what works, what is beautiful to me, and what I think is beautiful in nature. A lot of these things are inspired by nature. When I find, like, just the other day, I went to this Israeli restaurant. I'm here in California now visiting a friend, and we went to this amazing Israeli restaurant, and they served, labna,
Yeah.
So they served a labna mixed with pureed beets, and it was beautiful shade of pink. And then they had black sesame seeds on top. And I just thought that, wow, this is such a beautiful color combination. I'm stealing that. I'm going to do that the next time. I'm going to have this pink and black labna because, wow, it was so
Yeah.
stunning. And I think that I just get very excited about certain things, and I love food and I love color, and the way that that plate made me feel just looking at it, it blew my mind. And when I have experiences like this, and I really eat a lot, I travel for food. I never forget them. They're burned into my memory.
So I was just about to ask you how you keep track of that. You know, you can take photos or you can write it down, but you literally just hold them in your memory.
I do. I also will use social media stories. I will, like for this meal I told you, I took like a little video of it and I put it in my stories, because as we were talking before, social media, you have to stay relevant and stuff like that, even though it can be annoying. So I do have a record visually, so I can kind of think like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there was that thing I really liked. Like, let me go through the records and see my videos. And I think it's very important for an artist to take pictures and videos and to have a record. You don't want to totally rely on your memory because your memory will fail you. That being said, I do have an unbelievable sense memory for food and experiences.
You know the saying, good artists copy, great artists steal?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it so interesting. It's like the way you approach this is so unique to you, which I think is something amazing because in a world where everything is changing so fast, I think humans are really scared that they will be replaced, Like now there's another wave of technology improvements. So we already see a lot of layoffs, but somebody like yourself, who operates out of the innate uniqueness can never be replaced. And I think that's something really beautiful. And I think it's in one way or another, we should all strive to find that uniqueness that we can bring to the world, which basically is us as an individual. Because that's the one thing we are that can never be commoditized and like somebody else comes and does it better because it's innately unique to us. And I think you've really found that for yourself. And at least that's what I'm reading between your words, where you're doing something that's so unique to who you are and how you experience the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There is one other thing that I would say much more important to me in terms of food that I would like to talk about. And that isn't the artistic display, which is certainly a beautiful thing. But I've always had a passion for the last, I would say, 17 years or so. I've traveled the world researching specifically blue collar home cooked foods around the world that are important to small regional areas in the world. When you go to a certain place, there's a history, there's a story of the food that's passed down from generation to generation. And this is not fancy food. This is food that's eaten by common people every day. It can be extremely ancient. And this is what I find the most beautiful about food. And when I travel anywhere, and I recommend anyone to do this is a really great practice, is you research the top 10 most important dishes to a region, and you try them each 10 times at different places. And the reason I say to try them so many times is because everyone will do it slightly differently. And if you just try a dish, like let's say you go to New York City and you say, oh, I want to eat pizza. And you eat pizza one time in New York City. Well, how do you know it's really a good pizza? It's just like, could be a shitty pizza, So
Yeah.
if you try 10 different pizzerias, maybe most of them are bad and a few are good, but you're going to combine all that information in your head to generally have an idea of what the concept of the pizza is, like what is really the essence of a pizza, to try
Yeah.
to filter out the individual skill of the cook, okay? To try to filter out the quality of the ingredients available to the specific person. Because, hey, let's say you go somewhere and you're eating, let's say, a typical dish in South America, some rice and beans and some meats or something. Well, you might stop somewhere and the cook might have all the passion, right? All the love, but they're very poor and they can't afford the best ingredients, unfortunately, right? So you get the passion and the love, but you don't get the quality, right? So then you go somewhere else and maybe you have someone that they're using local organic ingredients and really high quality, but they don't give a shit, right? Because they have a bad attitude, right? And then you go, so I think it's important to try these simple regional things multiple times so you really get the whole picture and the whole story, if that's something you're interested in. Some people find high cuisine and haute cuisine and fusion cuisine most interesting, and that's beautiful. Respect to all the hard work of all these three-star Michelin chefs, no disrespect. It's just for me, I'm very much like a child, and I just really love the simple home cooked foods. So for my company, when we come back, in addition to the tables, we also do these food stations with hot food, very much like street food. So we do
Mhm.
pizza, we do pasta stations, we do anything you can think of, like in terms of food like that is what we love to do.
It's also what people love to eat. And just kind of to touch up on what you said, just a week ago, literally a week ago, I was sitting with my wife and we were at different restaurants in India. And we had that one snack. We just stopped somewhere with a car and she ordered that snack roadside. And it was so
Uh-huh.
delicious. And then we went to a different restaurant in Mumbai.
Uh-huh.
And she said the same dish is available here. And the dish was
Uh-huh.
completely different. It had nothing to do with what I ate at the roadside. And
Right.
and like that, we discussed that basically in India. Oftentimes, I feel like a dish might have the same name, but you go to 10 places, it will literally be different 10 times. So,
Absolutely. They have so many regional cuisines in India. It's really true. The north and the south and the east and the west and even region to region, it's like you go there and you say, "Oh, give me a curry." Well, what the fuck are you saying? And you realize like even something like curry is an English invention. It's not even from India.
yeah.
So like it is true. And I'm happy you noticed that the regional areas, people, their food means a lot to them.
Yeah, but even you don't even have to go that far. It's like we're talking like you're going from one town to another town and the dish will change. And it's like,
Yes.
uh, and it's so interesting, but it also, it also kind of speaks to, you did mention love. And I think there's something about people that care deeply for cooking and what they do. I think they can elevate even bad products to a certain degree. I mean, there's a limit to that. And in the same way, somebody who doesn't give a damn can really destroy the best product.
Yes. It's it's few things upset me more than that. That'll get under my skin.
Sorry for the interruption, but we gotta share the news with you. Nothing fishy from FultonFishMarket.com. They're delivering world-class seafood from New York City's legendary Fulton Fish Market straight to your door. Their fishmongers have helped countless chefs get what they need when they need it for over 200 years. Trusting FultonFishMarket.com means their experts work tirelessly to make your day run smoothly. Let your cooking skills shine and elevate your dishes with amazing seafood from FultonFishMarket.com.
We were talking before how I never use recipes for my whole life and I'm very
Yeah.
attuned with my senses. Well, listen, if I go to a restaurant, I can tell. just by looking at the food, just by seeing it, by feeling it. I can tell just by walking in the door, by the attitude of the wait staff, what's going on in the kitchen. I am extremely aware of the vibe in a place, what's happening. If you go into a kitchen, if you go into a restaurant and the tables are dirty or something, what do you think is going on in the kitchen? As a basic example of that, I will not eat the food and I will leave. I do not appreciate any disrespect. Chefs should love their job or they should quit, because it is a very difficult job. It's not always fun. And if your heart isn't in it, you get the fuck out of the kitchen, because you're going to hurt people. People are coming to you for healing. You're like a doctor, a spiritual doctor for them. They've had a hard day. They come into your restaurant. They want some tasty food, and you don't want to be there, and you do a bad job. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's how I feel about it.
But I mean, I hear you on that because of how I experience food and how I consume food, a lot more intentional. It's not just to feed me, but it's to actually nurture. But at the same time, I know that the hospitality industry at large, there's a large segment of people who just work there for a paycheck because it's jobs available.
Understood. So that is true. That is true. And I wish that wasn't the case. But I won't eat at that restaurant regardless, because it's going to affect me emotionally. But I do have a lot of compassion for people that they have to do a job that they don't want to do. And I completely understand that. And what I'm saying does not apply to these people. I mean more, there are a lot of cooks that, for whatever the reason, they're cooks. They've been in the industry for a long time. And they get burnt out, and even though they're burnt out, they stay in the same job, and the quality of the food goes down and down and down. And this is no way to live your life. I understand if you have a bad economic position, but regardless of the restaurant that you work in, you can still bring passion to the situation. You can still bring love to the situation. If you're forced to work in a restaurant and do it the best way you can. Really go for it, even if you're being forced to, because that's the only way you're going to learn and raise yourself and be able to move to the next situation. If you have a bad attitude and you play a victim mentality, like, oh, here I am peeling potatoes, you're going to be stuck there forever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that goes far beyond the kitchen. And it actually applies to anything in life. Like wherever people apply victim mentality, they will get stuck right there. And I think in a funny way, I keep saying that if you don't learn the lesson, life will turn up the volume. And I feel like whenever I was ignorant, life just toughened the situation, and it kind of has its ways to make you realize. Or you can just be a little bit more attuned and sensitive, and you will realize that there is a way to outgrow the situation.
Absolutely. Like for me, I had a lot of learning disabilities when I was younger, and I grew up kind of poor. And I have many privileges in this life. I'm healthy, and I'm very grateful for everything that I've been given. That being said, man, when I started in the restaurant industry, it was very difficult for me. I've worked every single job you can imagine in an unbroken chain for the last 20 years. And any kind of climbing of the ladder that occurred to me was a result of taking my job seriously, doing the best I can. And then whenever, if you take it seriously and you work hard, there's going to be slight moments where you can take advantage and jump to the next step. Somebody is going to give you a chance one day. Like, for example, my first private chefing job, I got because I was on a ferry going to a beach town near New York called Fire Island. And I was just going there for a vacation. And I hear in front of me, there was a couple talking. And they said, oh, our chef, it wasn't so good. And I wish we could find a private chef. And I just tapped them on the shoulder and I said, I'm a private chef. And I was not a private chef. I was completely lying to them. I said, I could do it. I'm a private chef. Oh, yeah, really? Okay, great. So they gave me a shot. And I ended up working for them for the whole summer. And this was how I got into into the private chefing world. And that's how I eventually started my catering company. It was all from that moment of just taking that chance.
I mean, that's a real, that's like such a, you can't even, that's nothing somebody can plan for, to be in the right spot in that moment. And you also have to have the guts to tap them like, hey, I'm a
That's
bright
right.
chef, and kind of,
You can't plan it.
yeah, that's, but I like the way you did that. And the fact that you it turned into a full summer gig, it's just amazing. Spending a summer in Fireland.
Well, the thing is, I just like whenever I had a job, whether it was being behind a bar polishing glasses or being a dishwasher or whatever it was, I just always gave it all my attention, and I gave it all my passion, and I just made sure that that I didn't have a bad attitude. So when I had that opportunity, sure, I could have said, "Oh yeah," and I could have gotten one job. But if I had not worked so hard for that couple, I wouldn't have gotten the next job. The career would have ended right there, and I would have been back where I was before. I'll say one more thing. If you're in a restaurant and you're being abused and you're not happy and you have the option of finding another job, okay? If you can survive and pay the rent barely, and you can quit, fucking quit. Okay? Don't take any bullshit from anybody. Respect yourself at all times. Don't just let yourself be abused. If you're in a situation that you're abused, or if you're in a situation where you're not learning anything, you're there and it's just sort of boring, quit. Quit and get a new job, and another job, and another job, and another job. I've quit so many jobs and I've been fired from so many jobs because I had a terrible attitude when it came to people disrespecting me or being bored. That's the thing. I just have always been somebody where I can give 110% of my focus and attention to something, but I have to be interested in it. So if you're not learning, if you're not in some way getting some knowledge, and you're not in the right place.
Yeah. Especially, I remember the very, very first job that I was offered in New York. I was a chef for barely 5 years at that point, and they wanted me to become a head chef. And I was like, no, I don't want to become the head chef of the restaurant. I want to go into a restaurant where there's still a head chef who knows more than me. Like, I don't want to be the guy that people turn to. I want to be the guy that still has upward mobility. And
Right
and instead of working for them, I worked at Danielle, which obviously there was a lot to learn, and there was tons of people a lot more experienced than me, and it propelled my career in a completely different way, you know.
Yeah. And less money too, right?
Yeah, a lot less money. Like
yeah.
barely knowing how to make ends meet money, you know.
Right. But it was worth it. It was worth it.
Yeah, the interesting thing is in now, over a decade later, even from a financial perspective, it made a lot of sense because that experience at Danielle, despite not making me any money while I was there, it opened so many doors, and like till today, people look on the resume and it's just like, okay, you've worked at Danielle, like this, and
right.
And the interesting thing is, this last summer it went full circle. I was in the Hamptons, and we were at an estate, and Danielle himself and my old head chef and everybody came, and we were at the estate, and they were also catering, and it was so cool because it was like the crew kind of came back together. And
that's so cool.
And it went like full circle. At least for me, it was like in my head, you know, it was like a very cool moment.
No, that's a beautiful moment. That's so beautiful. I see that. Yeah, that's so cool. And I'm a big fan of his as well. I've met him a few times. He's an amazing guy.
See here, the top picture here. Oh no, this is not at Danielle, but I have a picture at Danielle itself, 12 years ago, and then this was last summer in the Hamptons. This was the head chef back then, JFK, and Danielle himself, and it was just like this full circle moment. It was so cool.
That's so awesome. You know, I had another actually, you reminded me of a funny story. I've never told anybody this, maybe my wife, but I had something funny happen. I think this was last year, or maybe it was, no, it was 2 years ago. So I was catering an event in the Hamptons. That's why you reminded me. And big fancy house, whatever, fancy event. And a lady who was a guest at that event was my second ever private chef job many years before, and she fired me. And she fired me because, and get this, it's so funny. She wanted me to do a grazing table, right? And I had never done one before. And I did it.
And now you're a master in it.
Right. So she wanted me to do it, and she didn't like it because she said it was too straight and too organized, and I remember her saying the crackers were like matchstick men, lined up, and she was very unhappy. And she was there. I remember hearing her. She was like, "Wow, who catered this event? It's so amazing," This is like 10 years later, and I didn't even say anything. I just left. I didn't even like, I could have gone up to her and be like, yeah, it was me, like, but anyway, it was just a really nice validation. I'm sure if I said something to her, she would have been happy to see me. Maybe I should have said something, but, those moments are really wonderful. And it's also exciting because, growth happens very slowly and then all at once. Like within 1 year, you might think, oh, I'm not getting any better. It's the same old thing I'm doing, whatever. And then, you look back 5 years or something. It's like, wait a second, actually, I've come quite a long way. And so I think it's important to be patient with yourself and just be in the moment. It's all about the journey. I know it's corny, but it's not about the destination. You need to love what you do. I think it's very important.
I think it also ties back in with the concern about social media is that people get too carried away. Like, life can actually be rather simple if we take every moment for what it is and we give our best, irrespective of where we might be in that moment, That in itself, those basic two ways of looking at it can make the foundation for a really good life, and then without comparing ourselves too much. And I think that social media amplifies this unnecessarily comparing. And the funny thing is, sometimes I see people curating the nonsense that they put out on social media, and just like you, I'm a bit allergic to that. Like I have a amazing life. Like at the amount I travel, other people would be like, what's going on? But I don't want to destroy my moments by capturing them for others on social media. So because I want to be in those moments.
Yes.
And at the same time, I don't want to put them out there because I know how many other people feel bad about their life when I put stuff out there.
Absolutely. I agree with that. There's no need. Everybody has their problems, and everybody experiences the world in their unique way. And I don't think bragging to others about your life is I think it's a very toxic thing to do. And it's also false, right? Because even though you travel the world and you have these nice things, you have your own problems, I'm sure. So you put these images. What is it going to benefit you anyway? You know what I mean?
But the thing is that people don't see the problems of other people because, so one, we don't like to consume other people's problems as much. If somebody becomes trauma on their social media, people probably don't unfollow them. So they actually only follow those like curated but then for some psychological reason, they think that's the only reality, And the interesting thing is, anybody can paste one perfect post a day. They don't see the trauma that might happen in the other 23 hours of the day, or whatever nonsense goes on in their head, or whatever misery that. And that's something that I've also learned kind of serving the wealthiest clients in the world. I'm like, most of them are not happy. Like there's very, very
Mm,
few clients where I can say they're genuinely happy and grateful. And I think that's a metric that at least I take as a North Star in my life. It's like, you know, can I be joyful with what I'm doing on a regular basis? And am I grateful on a day-to-day basis? And like I would not be willing to give up my meditations to earn more money. I would not be willing to give up my joy to earn more money. I would not be willing to give up my gratefulness to earn more money. You know, that's kind of like,
mhm.
and when if those three things in place, then anyway, it's a good life.
Yes. And on that point, in terms of people being happy, um, I do have one other interesting thing. Um, so, being a private chef, it's very logistically easy to cook in people's kitchens, right? And you'll make more money, obviously, if you work for very wealthy people because they pay more and you're in the kitchen. It's very easy. I would encourage people to think about having a remote kitchen. I started out of my apartment in Tribeca. I started out of my closet. You can rent kitchens at churches, you can rent commissaries, but if you can have an off-premise kitchen and do catering events for clients, what you can actually do is you can lower the price point per person, and you can actually make a lot of money serving regular people, not necessarily people with a super high income, but ordinary people, by streamlining logistics and serving simple menus that don't take many hours to produce. Maybe you have one day of preparation and one day event. You can still make thousands of dollars. Ordinary people might have a wedding for 100 people, right? Maybe they want to pay $35, $45 a person, nothing crazy. But if you can keep your labor time and your preparation time simple, your menus simple, and everything easy, where you're not spending 1,000 emails and 100 hours on the phone with these people, you're going to be very happy making $2,000 um, serving 70 people, like as a profit. I mean, maybe the whole event
Yeah.
is $3,000 or $4,000. You're going to be very happy if you don't even have to be there. You know what I mean? If you can train one or two guys to help you. And I encourage people to think in this logistical way of how to make the most out of your energy, because there are only so many hours that you can chop things with your hands before your hands give out, before we're too old, before we're sick. And so it's very important to think, okay, I can be a private chef sometimes for this many years, but how can I serve people food in an efficient way, lower the price point so I can serve a wider audience? And I think the answer to that is simple menus. I'll give you an example. In my kitchen, I have these massive sous vide tanks, okay? And I built them myself. You're familiar with sous vide, I assume,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, of
because
course.
you worked at, yeah. So in each tank, I can vacuum seal and slow cook. I specialize in slow cook barbecue. I study it all over the world. So I have a wood pellet smoker outside in my kitchen, and I smoke all the pork shoulders and beef shoulders very easily in like a huge Traeger wood pellet smoker with oak wood, right? Get the flavor. We vacuum seal all the meats, okay? And then we put them in the tanks and we cook them overnight. Now, those bags of meats that are now falling off the bone, perfect barbecue, are transported in the sterile bags in food carriers to the event. Now, when we're at the event, we cut them open, we finish them in the oven, crisp them up. We have some really nice buns and homemade rainbow coleslaw, maybe a salad, some barbecue sauce. And this package we sell for $35 a person. And we make great money. And we just cooked meat for 100 people or 200 people. It took one guy in my kitchen maybe 3 hours to prepare food for 200 people. And the
Hmm.
reason I was able to do this so efficiently is because I really thought about the technology and the systems to making this simple menu work. So there are ways to be efficient with our time and energy by focusing on logistics. I think logistics are a great way to lower price points, to make things more efficient, and to make money without always having to serve only the very, very high class.
I think that's almost like an Elon Musk approach to it.
Yeah.
While you were describing it, I was a little bit thinking about Tesla. He's putting the car together differently. He's dropping the price point. He's making it more appealing to the average person, so that everybody. But still, money is being made. But yeah, it actually goes a little bit against about what I suggest people most of the time. I think there's merit in working for the high profile clients because it allows you to charge top dollars because you're solving a problem for the highest paying customer.
Sure.
But
yeah, absolutely.
I see what you're saying. It just takes more thought because you have to actually be very process oriented and you have to do the hard work up front.
I'm gonna tell you a secret, but don't tell anybody. Because I can do things so efficiently. Okay. When I have a big client like Google or Facebook, or I work for A-list celebrities sometimes, okay, that efficiency is still at play, which means I still am making 80% or so profit on what I'm charging because I have set up such efficient systems. I still have luxury packages. So the thing is, if we have an event and we're charging $125 or $150 a person, and it's, or the bigger event or whatever, and it's these huge things. Well, let's say you have, an event and it's $35 a person for 100 people. The food cost is, $750 or something for the meat and stuff. And you do a simple barbecue. I come away after labor and everything, I made $2,000. Okay, great. Let's say we have a luxury client. The luxury client wants the barbecue, but they also want past hors d'oeuvres and they also want a feasting table, one of my beautiful tables with flowers and everything. Okay, now it's a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 event. Well, those margins are still there.
Yeah.
It's always a good idea to think about efficiency. Always doing everything from scratch in the hardest way possible is not the way to go. There's always ways to think about. And sometimes it's guiding the clients in a way and explaining them the story about what you want to do. Like, for example, because I set up these amazing sous vide tanks and smoker, and I specialize in barbecue all over the world, right? I have on my menus barbecue, and I say, hey, I'm a barbecue specialist. Buy my barbecue. Because I have it in a system. It's efficient, yeah? Or another example is pizza. I've been a specialist in pizza for many years. Now, pizza, as many people know, that is a very high profit margin food. Okay? Yeah. You're dealing with flour and water. Okay? Now, we have a very efficient system of making pizza. And we will make sure that they have the oven on site or we rent it for them. So I encourage people to do that as well. Or the feasting tables that I make. People, listen. It's a very effective way to make money to make these feasting tables. Because what you can do is you can either own your own platters and rent them out to customers for additional money. Okay? You can rent things from rental companies and charge a fee for your services, like a percentage. Or you can use the client's own platters, or you can use all disposables. But in any case, just the act of putting, let's say you have $1,000 of food, and you have the $1,000 of food, you have meats, cheeses, vegetables, charcuterie, whatever you want, and you have 50 people that you're serving with this $1,000 of food. Well, if you take that $1,000 of food and you just put it on a bunch of plates, okay, that's fine. You take the same $1,000 of food and you put some flowers in there, you put it up on some platters, you put it together, you make it a beautiful piece. Well, now people come to the room, they go, you should see the reactions I get on the works that I do. People come to the room, they lose their mind. They go, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Look at, wow. And you've created extra value from doing something that's artistically beautiful. So why am I saying all this? It seems like I'm going all over the place, but really the point is you don't have to do everything people tell you to do. You have to learn to say no. You have to learn to say no, because a chef that says, I can do everything all the time, that was me for many years. You can't do everything all the time. You think that, oh, I did sushi a few times, so I'm as good as a sushi master? No. How arrogant is that?
I have no illusion when it comes to sushi. That's for sure.
Right. But you see, my point is, can I bake bread? Sure, I can bake bread. But do I bake bread for my tables? No. Because why wouldn't I use the incredible bakeries in New York City for the bread? I do barbecue, I do pizza, I do home cooked food, I do my feasting tables. Everything else, don't come to me. Go next door. Okay? So you stay in your lane and focus on what you want to do. I fucking love pizza. I love barbecue. I love making tables of cheeses and meats. So I stay in my lane and I'm going to be the best in the world at what I do. And because I'm staying in my lane and focusing, you mentioned Elon Musk, okay? Elon Musk, when he's all over the place, he's crazy, right? But in his company, Tesla, he's only making certain products and he's doing it very well. He's focusing on one thing. He's limiting the products that he offers, so he makes the best electric car. And I think that's the point, where whether you're a private chef or you're a caterer, you should have specialties, because the more that you specialize, that's how we were talking about creating value and differentiating yourself from other chefs. You can't just say, I'm a chef, I do everything, whatever you want. People love when you say no to them. It's my favorite thing. When I go to a restaurant and they say, I'm sorry, we're out of the pasta. I say, wonderful, I'm so happy you're out of the pasta. You know why? Because it means they're making it fresh. It means it's not bullshit. You know what I hate? When you go to a diner and they have 500 fucking things on the menu. That terrifies me. That means that it's 500 garbage things on the menu. I go to a restaurant, there's 5 things on the menu. 5. That's it. And you're going to get a good experience. So specialize in what you do. That is the first step to finding efficiency. That's the first step to making money, to being profitable, is you have to have efficient systems to do what you're doing.
Yeah. You would be terrified in India. They don't just have hundreds of items. They have 5 different cuisines. They're like Chinese, tandoori, Punjabi,
right,
Southern. And I'm like,
yes.
Like, well, you have an army.
This happens all over the world. It's yes. People make the mistake where they think that the more different things they do, the more attractive they are. But what people want, especially in this day, is specialization, because the internet shows clients that all the options are out there, and they would rather go to a sushi master to eat sushi than have some private chef try their best at their sushi. They would rather go to the best pizza restaurant in New York than have their pizza chef try to make pizza. And that's just what it is. So don't just be a private chef, don't just be a caterer, but be doing 1 or 2 things that brings you passion. Because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to be the best at it. As simple as that.
Yeah. And I think sushi is the funny one, because sushi makes it the most obvious. Because it's if you've ever eaten world-class sushi, you can't fake it. Like it's and other dish. Actually, last summer I was working with a family, and the son he really liked open fire cooking. like the Francis Malman kind of thing. And he was so
Yeah,
fired
he's
up.
amazing.
And I love fire, so I know how to work with fire. I've never cooked too much with fire, but I was like, yeah, I'm up for the challenge. Like, as long as you don't invite guests, I'm fine. We can give it a shot. Like, just don't have 10 people
Right.
sitting there, so that I can first figure it out. Okay.
Sure.
And I spent like 2 days with him dancing around the fire, and actually ended up cooking like for 20 people, and it was amazing.
Wow.
But at the same time, we were building a pizza oven in the backyard, and we started working, which was just another fireplace kind of. But it was really cool because we ended up cooking really, really good stuff, both in the oven as well as at the fire pit. And it was a lot of fun. And if there's one item in the kitchen that I'm a bit more obsessed about, it's the pizza. Like we got pretty nerdy around flour and
Nice.
and I always get excited when I go to a pizza place that gets obsessed about it, where they like care for the flour that they're using and where they're trying to get it right, and it's not just another cheesy slice of dough.
Yes. You love that, and that's why it was good for you to do that, for sure. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, I used to be a baker, and I love bread. I mean, I used to, for years, I was baking bread every day, sourdough bread, and it's funny, like such a stereotype, but during COVID, I returned to it too, and I was doing sourdough bread every day. And it's just bread, and is so beautiful. And I think that's why I still do pizza as well, because it's basically bread.
Yeah.
But I had to step aside from actual bread baking. I said, this was a beautiful journey. I spent many years on this, and it was a lot of fun, but I didn't have the passion for it. At a certain time, the passion ran out. I'm still passionate about pizza, so I'm there, and I'm there forever. I think also because I'm a born and raised New Yorker. But if your passion runs out in something, it's better to just let it aside, leave it to the people that really care about it. Another one was I used to make wedding cakes, and I had a few disasters, and I said, you know what, just leave it to the professionals. I'm done with wedding cakes, and it's okay to move on sometimes. It's all right.
I think you're right. I think this is like a philosophical statement almost. The last two years, I'll have to revisit both of those. Well, Richard, this has been way beyond just a culinary journey. I think it's been truly holistic conversation, between life and how to go about life, and how that creates more value and a great experience for yourself and the people around you. So I think it's a beautiful conversation we had.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, honestly.
Yeah. So just one more time, where can people connect with you, find you? We've to some degree already shown your website, but I want to make sure people can find you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, my business in New York is Edenopolis.com, and I'm at Edenopolis on Instagram. And I love talking about food and food philosophy. So, people, don't feel shy if you just want to have a conversation or any advice. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. So please reach out.
Nice. I love it.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, FultonFishMarket.com, the best seafood in the nation, trusted by the best chefs in the world. Aside from offering premium seafood, they also make life easier for you by delivering all these outstanding products right to your doorstep. Visit the official website www.fultonfishmarket.com and explore their incredible selection of seafood, and let your clients experience quality that has captivated palates for generations. Use code PRIVATECHEF at checkout to get 15% of your first order. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is the name we trust.